Okay, we are on YouTube now. I'm going to move you back to host. Press at 6, right?
Yes, that's correct. Okay, thank you.
Just making sure. Thank you. And yeah, we'll be on YouTube, so you won't have to record if you don't keep that for records or anything.
Okay, that sounds great.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. Have a good night.
Mr. Carson, I cannot hear you.
How about now?
Now I can, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Just an FYI, we are streaming on YouTube live tonight.
Okay, I'm hearing everything twice. Nope, now it's better.
Okay, is that better now?
Like, yes, at first it sounded like we were in a cave.
Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna mute myself and look for members in case they get swung over to attendees. We have.
Okay, have I been moved over to host?
You are co-host, that's correct.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioner Moeller, Connolly, and Armstrong. How are you all?
Good, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. How are you?
Good, good. Mr. Connolly, you're there? You can hear me?
Can you hear me?
I can now. Great, thank you. Mic check. Janet, do you see Patrick? He's got his hand up.
Yeah, I'm trying to promote him to panelist now.
Okay, great.
Okay,
Ye-
he's good.
Okay.
Oh, I need to get Dr. Hill over to,
Because I don't see anybody except us right now. Is that correct?
what do you mean?
I don't see anybody in the audience or anything.
You should,
I don't.
your co-host.
Nope. I just see us.
Let me go, I need to get back over here first and
That's fine.
get Dr. Hill moved over.
Is it working now for you, Mr. Chair?
No. Do you want me to leave and come back in?
Maybe 1 second.
Got him. I've got everybody now.
Yeah, I took co-host away from you and then redid it.
Yeah, I got everybody now.
Susanna Polly's trying to get on, and I'm trying to get Dr. Hill promoted. Can you try and see if you can't? Oh, it just let me do it finally, I
You
think.
got her, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, there she is.
I wanted to let the commission and staff know that tonight we are streaming live on YouTube.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, we do have a quorum. If you want to go ahead and start the meeting, and then
Okay, did we get Commissioner Polly moved over?
she's not on yet.
She's not. And what about Commissioner Ernst?
He's not on yet. He might have got a phone call just before the meeting started, and then he'll be on late.
Okay, but you all are ready.
Yes.
Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. I want to welcome you to the January 10th meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals. My name is Jeff Carson. I'll be serving as chair of tonight's meeting. I want to make a couple of introductions before we start, and then I'll turn the meeting over to Secretary Parker. First of all, Commissioner James Ernst, who's not on the call right now, but should be joining us shortly, is serving as vice chair. Gunnar Hand, who's the Director of Land Use and Urban Planning, is with us tonight, along with Janet Parker, the Executive Assistant to the Department of Land Use and Urban Planning. We also have Byron Toy from the planning staff and Patrick Waters from the Unified Government Legal Counsel. In addition, there are the following commissioners present this evening: Commissioner Jake Miller, Commissioner Brandy Armstrong, Commissioner James Connolly, Commissioner Karen Jones, and Commissioner Mark Muller. So with that said, I will turn the meeting now over to Secretary Parker. She will read the opening statement and tell you how we're going to run the meeting tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We would like to welcome those participating by telephone or Zoom to the meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals. Members of the Board of Zoning Appeals are participating remotely by Zoom, and Mr. Jeff Carson is serving as chairman this evening. Please note the following instructions for the meeting. If you are joining by Zoom video, please make sure you have an appropriate background and plan to stay visible during the meeting. Board members, please use the raise your hand feature when you want to speak, and after Chairman Carson recognizes you, please unmute your microphone and state your name when you begin to speak. If you need to recuse or take a break, use the raise your hand feature. For those attending the meeting this evening, please use the raise your hand feature if you want to speak on an application. After the chairman recognizes you, please state your name and address and make your comments. If you are having issues getting in the Zoom meeting, please email planninginfo@wicokck.org and let Secretary Parker know. Proper meeting decorum is expected of all participating in the meeting, and anyone who fails to act properly will be removed from the meeting. The city reserves the right to discontinue a meeting if any improper behavior occurs which prevents the uninterrupted conduct of business. The format for this evening's meeting is as follows. The applicant will make the opening statement explaining the proposal. The applicant will be given 15 minutes to present their case, which includes the applicant, consultants, and other members of the applicant's team. Members of the board will then address any questions they may have to the applicant. Any persons wishing to speak in favor will be recognized and allowed to do so at that time. Then those persons in opposition will be recognized to make their statements and ask questions, with each member of the public being given 5 minutes to express their opinions. Time may not be shared between speakers. A speaker's time may be extended in 5-minute intervals by a 2/3 majority vote of the board. The applicant will then answer questions and make a closing statement. The public hearing portion of the meeting will then be closed, and the public will only be allowed to address the board if a question is directed to them. The staff will then make their recommendation. The board will discuss the application and make their decision with a brief statement of the reason for the motion preceding the making of the motion. Motions to approve shall include the staff stipulations unless otherwise stated in the motion. Mr. Chairman, our first item on the agenda tonight is BOZA 2021-039, Chad Adcock, for property at 2400 South 63rd Street. Does any member of the board have any contact to disclose with regard to this application?
No.
No. Janet, would you please let the record show that Commissioner Pauly has joined us?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Adcox, I've got you queued up to speak. Go ahead, please, and give us your name and address, please, for the record, and tell us about your project.
Sure. My name's Chad Adcox. I live at 2400 South 63rd Street, Kansas City, Kansas, 66106. I'm wanting to put a detached garage in the backyard. I've got it set where the square footage roughly on the ground is going to be around 800 square feet. I'm running into issues because I want to put a larger roof on there and keep the area that I have on the second floor. It'd be about another 500 square feet, and it puts me over the 1,000 limit. And that's the issue I'm running into. And it's not going to be living or anything like that. It's going to be strictly for storage.
Okay, so your total square footage is going to be about 1,300 square feet. Is that correct?
Roughly, yeah. The plans that I have pulled up that I've seen online that I want to get is roughly around 1,500 or 1,300, sorry.
Okay, is it going to be built according to those plans with all the windows on the front and the back?
Yeah, I might do some difference with switching the larger garage door on one side and then the smaller one on the left facing it, just for driveway restrictions and space, basically. It'd be a lot easier to put the lawnmower and other yard stuff on the left side than it would be on the right.
But on the second floor, you're planning on having 7 windows for a storage area?
And that's up. Anything could change on it, whatever needs to be done. It doesn't have to be, but
it's not being built for any type of living quarters or anything like that at all?
No, it's
And
not.
there's no plans down the road to change that into that?
No, it's not.
All right. Any questions for the applicant? Seeing, oh, yes. Sorry, Commissioner Jones.
Mr. Adcox, my question is, maybe I missed it, but it's not going to be used for any sort of commercial business or anything? Is
No,
it strictly residential?
strictly residential.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll go to the public. Anyone in the audience tonight want to speak in favor of or in opposition to this request? Please raise your hand. Seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the meeting. We'll go to Director Hannah and get his comment.
Hey, Mr. Chair, this is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Design. Again, this was noticed for up to 1,584 square feet. So the variance request is 584 square feet above the 1,000 square feet that is allowed for an accessory structure. This is in the Morris Turner area. There are some old notices of violations on the property, but none that pertain to this property currently. We received no letters of support, no letters in opposition. In staff's review, we believe that they do not meet the 5 statutory requirements to request a variance, so we are recommending denial. If the Board of Zoning Appeals seeks to recommend approval, we have a couple of conditions of approval, including but not limited to upgrading the driveway to meet UG driveway apron standards, matching the material of the primary structure, excuse me, removing the existing accessory structure on the property prior to constructing this proposed new accessory structure. We do have a condition in there about no accessory dwelling units can be allowed on this property. R1 zone only allows 1 dwelling unit per parcel currently. In addition, as it relates to Commissioner Jones's question, any use of the property, whether it be a short-term rental or this proposed garage or any commercial use, will require its own special use permit and approval through the City Planning Commission. So again, staff recommends denial.
Questions for staff? Commissioner Jones.
Gunnar, I just want to be straight from you on what you understand the requested square footage is. I think I heard Mr. Adcock say once about 1,500, but then focused more, I believe, on closer to 1,300. Which is it? Which do you show?
Application came in at 1,584. Again, if it came a little bit underneath that, we would be fine in terms of noticing, because we noticed it for higher than 1,300. It's still over 1,000 and still requires a variance.
Any further questions for Director Hand?
Just one more.
Yes.
Mr. Chair. So Gunnar, other than, I'm not seeing any other reason other than the applicant just wants a larger space, no other extenuating circumstance that's involved here that we're aware of?
That's correct. We don't see anything terribly unique about the parcel or the property. As we have in other cases, it's a not too standard parcel, but it's in a relatively established rural area of the Turner/Morris area. These are smaller lots. They are surrounded by some oddly shaped larger lots.
Additional questions or discussion?
A question, if I can go back to the applicant for a moment.
Okay, go ahead.
So Mr. Adcox, is there, what do you attribute the fact that you need over, or you're requesting more than 1,000 square feet? What's the purpose of that? Is just 1,000 not enough, or do you have an extenuating circumstance that we're not aware of?
No, I currently do not have a garage to pull. Me and my girlfriend live at the house. We have 2 vehicles, would like a place to pull our vehicles in. I have a larger lawnmower. I also have a motorcycle, which would take up that 3rd smaller garage door. Part of the basement that I have now is just basically a workshop with just filled full of tools, and I would like to move the tools out of the house. So I'm just not working down the basement. We have storage, Christmas boxes, Halloween costumes that we put in boxes, extra bedding, typical stuff you accumulate over the years. I would like a place that's not in our house to store that, so that we can actually enjoy the living space in the house that we're occupying.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chair, if I may, just to
Yes.
reemphasize, this is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Design. This is a 2-story structure, so we do count both stories for our square foot calculation. The footprint is half-ish of 1,500.
Correct. Other questions for staff? Commissioner
Gunnar,
Jones?
I do. Gunnar, and having said that, though, the square footage is still out of bounds, though, even though it's across 2. Okay, thank you.
If there were no loft storage, he would be under the the required amount, correct? He would not need the variance.
This is Garland, Director of Planning and Design. That is correct, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for the director? Seeing none, we will stand for motion. I will stand for motion. Mr. Jones?
Although I understand the petitioner's request, I just don't know that with the current ordinance and us trying to have a goal of maintaining consistency with requests, and the reason for such requests, I don't feel I have a choice but to make a motion to deny it based on it's in conflict with the city ordinance.
All right, motion is made for denial by Commissioner Jones for the reasons stated by the maker. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by,
In my life.
I'm sorry, was that a second by Commissioner Moeller first? Sorry, I don't know who got it.
Conley.
I have Connolly and Moeller, either one. We'll give it to
In
Connolly.
college football, his nemesis is Nick Saban in Alabama.
Okay, so I got a motion for denial. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion for denial? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Moeller,
Aye.
Pauly,
Aye.
Armstrong,
Aye.
Conley,
Easy to say, hard to do.
Aye.
Thank you.
Hill,
A nemesis not only stands in the way.
Jones,
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to recommend or to deny this appeal as it is in conflict with the unified government ordinances passes 7 in favor and none opposed.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman, our next application is BOZA 2021-045. Kevin Bentley with Catholic Charities of Northeast Kansas for property at 2601 Ridge Avenue. Does any member of the board have any contact to disclose with regard to this case?
No.
No.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I did this afternoon receive a letter from Laura Marsh, Outreach Manager for the Merck Corporation, in favor of this application.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Bentley, I've got you queued up to speak. Would you please give us your name and address and tell us what you'd like to do here?
Certainly. My name is Kevin Bentley, and I live at 17554 West 158th Street in Olathe, 66062. And I wanted to mention to you that last week we received Board of Commissioners approval for a special use permit for the purposes at 2601 Ridge. Those were to relocate our Shalom House transitional housing program and New Roots for refugees farm training programs to this location. And that having been passed, we're here to talk about the variances related to New Roots and in order for us to use the property for that particular program. Some of the variances reflect properties that already exist on the parcel, and some need to be constructed in order to support the program. The parcel is over 25 acres and sits in a heavily wooded, very heavily wooded area with a 21,000 square foot, 31 room main residence that will be used for Shalom House in the basement for New Roots. And then there is an open area of grass where we plan to use for our farm training gardens. Over the past, Catholic Charities of Northeast Kansas alone has settled more than 1,100 refugees into our area over the last 4 of our fiscal years. And here, just like we've seen across the nation with the refugees, we find that newly settled refugees become some of the most entrepreneurial among our neighbors. When we relocate somebody, we place them into permanent housing. And then when we find interest in farming as a way to support their new life here, these refugees become participants in this program. Many of them have experience farming in their former homes, and others have just expressed an interest to do that. Each of the participants receives a small space of land to grow crops, receive training, and we help them set up in farmers markets in the area. And we also have a CSA, or community supported agriculture subscription system, connecting the farmers directly to the consumer. In this program, we partner with Cultivate Kansas City, another nonprofit, for the farm training and for the expertise in agriculture. So in essence, we help create sustainable living for the families while we support urban agriculture and healthy, diverse food options for the community. We currently operate the program at Juniper Gardens, which, as you know, is closing. This site is perfectly suited for the relocation with the space that I had just mentioned and with the space in the building available for our office and training. Our refugee participants will not live on the property, as they will have already been placed into permanent housing in the area. We have provided a full inventory of all the structures that exist or are proposed, and there were several of them that were there. Two of the existing structures, the 4-car garage and the screened brick gazebo, exceeded both the quantity and the square footage of accessory structures that are allowed by code. And those have been there for several decades, but we were unable to identify exactly when they were built. We would like to include those so that they can continue to be used, maintained, and in the event that something happens to them, replaced, as they will be integral to the program. One of the existing structures will be removed regardless of tonight's meeting, because it's a picnic shelter that we do not need, that was built in the wooded area. Two of the existing structures are on our request only to maintain the beauty and recreational aspects of the grounds. There's a small wooden gazebo along the walking trail, and there's a decorative well sitting out in another grassy area. If necessary, however, to reduce the quantity and the square footage of accessory structures, we can remove those. Others that we wish to remain included are the small shed and an in-ground cistern that collects rainwater off of the main building. This will help control water runoff, as well as providing a source of water for the farm to mitigate the impact on the community water supply. There are a number of monuments that we plan to retain and maintain for the beauty, peace, and spiritual environment that the property has long been known for. We included pictures of those earlier, but we understand those are structures. The new structures that we want to include are 2 small pergolas, so that participants, farmers, can take a break out of the heat, a wash station, a composting bin, and a couple of greenhouses that are necessary to start the plantings for the season. So I would like to close with some facts about the program. For 13 years, New Roots has trained newly settled refugees to prepare them for their new life here. And along the way, we've helped start small businesses, supply culturally appropriate food to diverse residents of Wyandotte County. And in all, 44 families have been served, creating 39 currently active businesses as a result of this program. This has generated $1.5 million in income for these families and allowed them to purchase homes in Wyandotte County and other areas. Also, it's converted 12 acres of land in Wyandotte County alone to be used for farming. We asked for approval on these variances, which support a lot of the aspects of the citywide master plan, as well as the land use plan. Specifically, this supports generation of economic development east of 635. It enhances the natural environment, and it supports urban agriculture. We thank you for your time, and we have a number of our staff here for questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Bentley on this project? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to the audience. Anyone in the audience come tonight to speak in favor of or in opposition to this request, please raise your hand. Okay, I've got Semra. I'm sorry, you're going to have to help me with your name, but I'm going to go ahead and get you unmuted here.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Semra Fetahovic. I don't know
Thank
if you
you.
would have gotten it.
I probably wouldn't have, but I didn't want to mess it up too badly. So please,
That's
please,
okay.
please and give us your address, please, and provide your testimony.
Okay. I recently moved to 444 Shawnee Road, Kansas City, Kansas 66103. I'm very excited to be in Wyandotte County. So my name is Semra Fetahovic. I moved to Kansas City in the US in 2000 as a refugee with my family from Bosnia. We lived in the Strawberry Hill area and received a lot of support from Catholic Charities in our resettlement process. I went to Grant Elementary School and attended Rosedale Middle School. For the past 3 years, I have co-managed the New Roots for Refugees program on the Cultivate Kansas City side with Meredith Walrathan, who's also here. So as Kevin mentioned, I manage the current site, which is at Juniper Gardens Training Farm, 9 acres that are leased from the Kansas City Housing Authority. Last year, we had over 20 growers growing on this 9-acre site, both in the New Roots for Refugees program, as Kevin mentioned, so starting a small farm business, but also we have space for community gardens so that people can grow food, feed their families. And as Kevin mentioned, the New Roots program is extremely important and valuable because it allows refugees to come here and have meaningful work that's familiar to them and that has a positive impact on the community. So one of my favorite things about Wyandotte County and KCK is the rich food culture. We have mom and pop cafes, lots of coffee shops, independent restaurants, independent grocery stores. And then obviously at the beginning of that is the farms that are supplying these places and feeding people. As we know, Western Wyandotte County is still more rural with larger farms, but Eastern Wyandotte County has a vibrant scene of urban farms. This 2022 will actually be the 15th growing season of the program. And what's really cool is, as Kevin mentioned, the number is a little bit different. There are 31 families that have graduated from the program that are still actively farming in Kansas City, and most of that is in Wyandotte County. So yeah, I obviously support this program because what better way to support the community and also this rich food culture that I and many people love than to support people who are growing this food. Another important thing is that as the program has grown, we have had several issues with the Juniper site, primarily that we don't have ownership of that land and so are limited to temporary infrastructure. But also we've outgrown the space because there is an increased demand in farming and community garden space. So being able to expand the program and relocate to another site will allow us to serve a larger population of people in Wyandotte County. That's all I have. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And thank you for sharing your very positive story.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak in favor of or in opposition to this request? Please raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, we'll go to Director Hand and we'll get his comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. This case before you has 2 variances, one for the number of accessory structures in an R1 zone and one for the cumulative square footage of all those accessory structures. We were able to send out, I think after we sent the initial draft staff reports, the 5 statutory questions and requirements. We do believe, staff does believe that this case does meet that. The parcel is odd shaped. It's a large lot. It's a unique situation. And on top of that, it is a unique use. As the applicant had mentioned, the special use permit for the group home was approved by the Board of Commissioners last Thursday. Again, this is related to that in addition to this New Roots farm program that they like to co-occupy this parcel. Let's see, there are currently, while the applicant is working through cleaning up the facility and addressing some issues that you saw in some of the pictures that were mentioned in the special use permit as well, there are currently no notices of violations on the property. We have received letters of support. We have not received any letters in opposition at this point. In relation to the request, staff does have a couple of conditions. There is a need for a retroactive building permit for the garage that's been there for decades. Any new building will have to go through the building permit process. Additionally, as we heard some additional, as we heard at the for the SUP for the group home, this approval does carry a condition for screening around the property as well. Staff recommends approval. We'd also like to add a condition if possible by motion by the Board of Zoning Appeals. Typically when applicant comes back, goes through and seeks a building permit, they have to submit a plot plan. We have received a site plan for this proposal, but it doesn't show everything in detail. So we would like to request that a plot plan be submitted in addition to as a part of the approval process, and they can pick that up when they come in for building permits. With that, I'd happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you. Questions for the director? I am seeing none, so I'll stand for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not going
Yes.
to make a motion, but could we note for the record that Vice Chairman Ernst joined the meeting during this presentation?
Yes, thank you. Okay, once again, I will stand for a motion if there's no questions for Director Hand. Commissioner Connolly?
Do we need two motions? Or just one?
I think, yes. Do you want to put them together, Gunther, or Gunner, or
One's fine.
one is fine? Commissioner Jones?
I think given the totality of the circumstances and the very positive testimony that we heard, in addition to the recommendation from Gunner and staff, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the petitioner's request with the added, subject to staff, existing staff stipulations and comments, with the added condition that the petitioner submit a detailed plot plan as requested.
All right, thank you. Motion is made for approval with the, is this for variance one, or are you making it for both?
I'm making it for both.
All right, thank you. Motion is for approval for both requests, subject to staff stipulations and the additional requirement added by staff made by Commissioner Jones. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Connolly. Any discussion on that motion for approval? Commissioner Hill, is your hand up? Was it up for a second? Okay, thank you. Any discussion on the motion for approval? Seeing none, roll call.
Moeller,
Aye.
Pauly,
Aye.
Armstrong,
Aye.
Conley,
Really kind of put the game away to me.
Ernst,
Commissioner Ernst. He's trying. There we go.
I need to abstain because I did not hear 99% of the item.
All right, thank you.
thank you. Hill,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to approve this appeal, subject to the revised conditions, passes 7 in favor, none opposed, and 1 abstention.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, our third appeal is BOZA 2021-047, John Coffin, for property at 3817 Lust Drive. Visiting member of the board have any contact to disclose with regard to this case?
No.
Thank you.
Mr. Cawthon, if you're in the audience, could you raise your hand? I've got a couple. I've got a JCH and a John C. I'm not sure who's who. There you go. Go ahead and please give us your name and address for the record.
John Cawthon, 3817 West Drive, Kansas City, Kansas, 66106.
Okay, why don't you tell us what you'd like to do here?
Well, the property is about 650 foot square, and it's just such a large property. It hasn't been treated very well over the years. I've already hauled several 155-gallon drums of trash off of that property, and I'm going to continue that. It's a valley and very steep embankments, and definitely want to be doing some planting. I'm not a big farmer or anything, but as I improve the property, there's going to be the need to do some outbuildings and things, and it would just be easier if I didn't have to have variances every single time something needs to happen in order to accommodate that. I
Yes,
am
sir.
intending on building a primary residence on the property as well. I mean, I'm dying to live there.
Okay, so your plan is to eventually build?
Yeah, this year if building costs come a little bit under control.
Okay. Anything else? Anything else, sir? Mr. Cawthon?
No.
Okay,
I'm going to tear down the stables. You might have seen a picture of some remnants of some things that, yeah, that one. That's coming down. I haven't torn it down yet because I wanted to figure out what I'm going to deal with, how I'm going to figure this thing out. And that was always coming down. So I will seek the appropriate permits and we'll get that removed as we move forward.
okay. Anything else?
No.
All right, thank you. Any questions for this applicant? Seeing none, we'll go to the public. Anyone in the audience want to speak in favor of or in opposition to? Mr. Rich, could you please go ahead and give us your true name, please, and address?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I
Okay.
can now.
Richard Wilcox, 3808 Les Drive, Kansas City, Kansas, 66106. And I'm opposed to it being transferred from residential into agricultural use.
Okay, and do you have a reason for your opposition to this request?
Yes, agricultural use refers to the use of land where such land is devoted to the production of plants, animals, and horticultural products, including but not limited to forages, grains, and feed crops, dairy animals and dairy products, poultry and poultry products, beef, cattle, sheep, swine, and horses, bees, and et cetera, et cetera. My problem is I don't want cows or pigs down there because all that smell would come up the hill.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to tell us?
No, not right now.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I've got just the title says Zoom user. So I'm going to move you over. Please give us your name and address.
Bonnie Kuntz, 3714 Les Drive.
Yes, ma'am.
And yes, I do agree with what he's trying to accomplish. He's the first owner of this property in 60 years that's actually done anything to improve the neighborhood. So whatever he needs to do, I'll back him.
Okay, so you're in favor.
Definitely.
All right. Thank you. Anything else you'd like to add?
There's actually 3 of us neighbors here. This is Amy Parker.
And give me your address. There you go. Go ahead, Amy.
3719 Lust Drive, K66106. And I'm also in favor.
Okay, thank you. And who else do we have with you?
I also have John Pretch. My primary address is 2910 South 38th Street. I also have another adjoining property there, 3810 Lust Drive. Both properties are adjacent to his property. And I am 100% in favor of, what he's wanting to do with the property.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else there?
That's it.
Okay, thank you all very much. Anyone else in the audience want to speak in favor of or in opposition to? Please raise your hand. Seeing none, we'll now go over to Director Han and get his comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. This case, Board of Zoning Appeals case, is being heard in conjunction with change of zone 2021-053, which will be heard later this evening by the City Planning Commission. So you might hear me say the same things later. Then this variance is for the depth to width ratio. When you do a change of zone, you cannot create anything against the code. And so here we are for a variance for the depth to width. It is a unique situation. It's clearly formally a And I'll go back up to it real quick so you can see what clearly used to be one big square that over time got eaten up by these other parcels. Some of the neighbors, I think, were just on the call accordingly. This one, just for a little bit of background, although this is not the change of zone, this was caught up in a rezoned to R1 a long time ago. That was a sort of blanket rezoning. So this was formerly agricultural a long time ago, probably in the 70s. Hasn't necessarily changed its use on the ground since that time. Again, this is in the Turner area. It is, again, this odd shaped parcel. There are no notices of violation on this property. We had received letters of support prior to the meeting. We had not received any letters in opposition prior to the testimony earlier on this agenda item. Staff does recommend approval with several conditions. Specifically, there's the driveway the driveway apron needs to be upgraded to UG standards. The applicant did receive a conservation plan, which we'll talk about in a little more detail in the change of zone. That is to say, specifically as it relates to one of the comments, any livestock added to this parcel will need an update to their conservation plan with the conservation district. That is a condition of approval. And the applicant did mention it, but another condition of approval is to remove all the accessory structures in the camper you saw in one of the pictures from the property before approval. Additionally, there is sort of a stream. It's not a noted stream, but there is sort of a stream bed that runs through, as this is the kind of low point, as the applicant had described. That relates to the conservation district and some of the comments they have for the change of zone. Again, staff recommends approval.
All right, thank you. Questions for Director Hand?
Did you say something? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, sir.
Okay. Did you say something about, I didn't understand that last part about I need to fix something on my property.
Okay, Gunnar, could you just repeat the last bit of what you said? He's gonna have to tear down. Go ahead.
As it relates to the variance and the change of zone, again, they have the similar conditions of approval as they're tied together. We need all the accessory structures removed from the property.
All right, thank you. And the trailer.
And the trailer.
Or camper. Okay, questions for Director Hand from the commission? Seeing none, I'm sorry, Commissioner Jones.
Gunnar, with regard to what the one gentleman said about not wanting livestock animals due to the smell, isn't that more appropriate to go with the case related to the change of zone? And I didn't hear that he wanted animals necessarily. Are we talking about plant-based agriculture, or are we talking about livestock? And is that more appropriate for the other case?
This is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. It is more germane to the change of zone. I only brought up the Conservation District because of the comment that was issued from the public. Again, this property did go through a Conservation District review and does have a conservation plan. That conservation plan does not include livestock. So if livestock were added, one of the conditions of approval for this and the change of zone is to get a new conservation plan accordingly.
And it would have to come back through us.
No, they just have to go to the Conservation District and get a new conservation plan.
But right now, as far as you know, no livestock is included in the petitioner's request.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, we'll stand for a motion.
Motion to approve with staff stipulations.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Connolly. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion on the motion for approval? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Moeller.
Aye.
Pauly.
Aye.
Armstrong.
Aye.
Conley.
Aye.
Ernst.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to approve this appeal, subject to the staff's conditions, passes 8 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you, Mr. Cawthon. We'll see you at the the Planning and Zoning Commission here in shortly.
Mr. Chairman, would you like to make a statement about the Planning Commission meeting?
Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you. We are running just a few minutes behind on the Board of Zoning Appeals meetings. For those of you coming to attend the Planning Commission meeting. We will take a 5-minute recess after this meeting ends, which will be shortly, and then we'll convene the Planning Commission immediately following that break. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, our last application on the Board of Zoning Appeals agenda is BOZA 2021-049, Lee Mendenhall with Kansas City Sign Company for property at 1021 North 7th Street Traffic Way. At this time, does any member of the board have any contact to disclose with regard to this case?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mendenhall, go ahead and give us your name, please, and address, and tell us about your project.
Okay, thank you. My name is Lee Mendenhall. Our business address is 8248 Northwest 101st Terrace, Unit 13 in Kansas City, Missouri. Our project is that over the past couple of years, there's been a large renovation of the townhouse development in downtown Kansas City, Kansas. As to part of that renovation, we would like a variance to mimic the original rooftop sign that was on the property originally when it was a townhouse hotel. We've already have received initial design approvals from the State Historic Preservation Office and from the National Park Service. We'd be utilizing the existing scaffolding structure that's on top of the building right now. And then once this sign is installed, this will certainly be an iconic landmark for the building and also for downtown Kansas City, Kansas. We do have a staff recommends approval with a few stipulations. And one of those that we would like to have at least some more discussion on is the ability to light this sign with, most of the time we would anticipate that the sign would be lit as white. Also, we would have the ability to light the sign in red. And then, certainly there's the opportunity with other colors as well, too, based upon just enhancing the ability to have the sign be recognized across the city.
Okay, anything else you'd like to add?
I think that's a pretty good overview, hopefully.
Okay, great. Any questions for the applicant, please? Seeing none, anyone in the audience want to speak in favor of or in opposition to this request, please raise your hand. Will Anderson. Go ahead and give us your name and address, please.
G'day, Will Anderson, BHC. We're at 712 State Avenue, Kansas City, Kansas. Company's been there for some 2 or 3 years, but we've been in downtown Kansas City, Kansas for quite some time through Murray Roads and that. We're in support of the sign as suggested or applied for. They are actually a close neighbour of ours. We can see the sign from our office and agree that any sign on the top will be a market to the city. And we're happy to see anybody get in, realise that the hotel is there, it's historical, and encourage people to come into downtown Kansas City, Kansas. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Robert Hughes.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm with Hughes Development Company. Our office address is 1021 North 7th Street. We are the property manager and the co-developer of this facility. We've been in this facility for 42 years. We've undertaken, as Mr. Mendenhall has indicated, a major renovation, upwards of $43 million. To top it off, we'd certainly like the image of this facility to represent something unique to downtown, and the sign on the top of this building will do so. We're also asking, as Mr. Mendenhall has suggested, the ability to allow the sign to change colors and represent some of the civic aspects of what goes on in our community. For instance, it could be red representing a Chiefs win, or blue representing a Royals endeavor, or white or any color that might aspect something that's going on in our community. So it just gives us a little more pizzazz. So I'm thanking the staff for the recommendation, but allowing the staff to perhaps give us some consideration for what else we might do with this iconic sign. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We will talk to the director about pizzazz in just a moment. Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll go to Director Hand and we'll get his comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. Again, this is 2 variances. They're the same code, so I think we can get away with just 1 vote. There's a maximum square feet for roof signs. There's a maximum height for roof signs. Again, as the applicant mentioned, this is to essentially restore the signage on the former sign of the historic structure. So the existing scaffolding is there, and the signage stays within that existing scaffolding. So staff does believe this does meet the requirements for a variance. There are some old notices of violation on this property, but none of them pertain to this specific variance. Most of them have been cleaned up through the rehab of this historic structure. We've received no letters of support, no opposition, nor an opposition prior to this evening. We do have a couple of conditions to our recommendation for approval. Some were mentioned, and I'll get to those in just a second. But essentially, we focused and have worked with the applicant to change the font previously to better match our records for the historic townhouse signage on top of the Crosslines Towers building. The applicant is going through an environs review simultaneously. This is not a local landmark. It is in the environs of a local landmark. So we're only doing an environs review, but we've been working closely with our historic preservation division in this department, which has addressed some of these sort of font size, color issues. I would recommend that we amend condition number 1. One, it was a little misleading how it was written, but I think specifically to the applicant's request, we have no problem with it being lit different colors. The question is, what does it look like when it's resting, i.e. during the day, during daytime hours, not lit up at night? And all the indication that we've been able to find historically in our records, which pretty much matches this postcard next to this rendering, is that the lettering of the building was red originally. So currently it's black and white. Can't light it up during the day. You probably could, and it could probably reflect light. So we're seeking it to match the historic sign as much as possible. We've already done that with one revision of the font and style a little bit. So we would ask that the color be left red, and you can light it up whatever you want thereafter.
Okay. Yep. Any questions for the director? Seeing none, I'll stand for a motion. Commissioner Jones?
I think given the testimony and the recommendation from Gunnar and staff, I want to make a motion to approve both variances subject to staff stipulations and comments. In addition, in line with the director's recommendation and make an amendment to condition number 1 with regard to the sign.
Okay. Is there a second to Commissioner Jones's motion?
I second.
Commissioner Hill, thank you. Commissioner Hill for the second. Any discussion on the motion for approval with the additional changes? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Moeller,
Aye.
Pauling,
Aye.
Armstrong,
Aye.
Conley,
Aye.
Ernst,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to approve this appeal, subject to the revised conditions, passes 8 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you. That concludes the board. Sorry.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, we do need to elect for 2022 our chairman and vice chairman, please.
Yes, we do need to elect officers for this year, and I was informed by Commissioner Ernst that he is not going to be able to serve as vice chair in 2022. So we will need a couple of nominations for chair and vice chair of Board of Zoning Appeals.
I guess can we change that? How often we do this in our bylaws
In what way?
to where it's not every year, to maybe 5 years, 3 years?
Patrick?
We could change the bylaws. So next time around, but too late to do it tonight, but next time we take a look at the bylaws, we could change that.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Any nominations, Commissioner? Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Connolly.
I nominate Jeff Carson as chair.
Thank you.
And Karen Jones as vice chair.
Okay, is there a second to that nomination? Commissioner Ernst?
I'll second that.
Second both?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Hill, were you going to do that? Okay.
That's exactly what I was going to do.
Okay, sorry, he beat you just by a second or two. Okay, any other nominations? And I'm sorry, I've done this before. How do we handle the votes? Do Karen and I need to go away?
Well, since you're the only nominees, I don't think so. And we can just take a voice vote. I mean,
okay.
Roll,
Gunnar, do you take that over? You call for the vote, or do I call for the vote?
It's your vote.
All right, we'll call for vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Thank you all. Karen and I look forward to serving. I'm sorry, I'm speaking for you, Karen, but I'm assuming you do because you didn't remove your name. So that will conclude the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. We will take a 5-minute recess and we will reconvene and start the City Planning Commission meeting. Thank you all. Okay, everyone, 2-minute warning.
Sorry I was late, Jeff.
That's okay.
It's 3 different computers. Fail. One wouldn't connect, one wouldn't install Zoom. I don't remember the third one.
Good grief.
So I ain't touching this. Whatever I got now is.
If it wouldn't have been this one, that would have been me on my phone. So there you go. And I've done many a Zoom meeting from the phone before. I just wouldn't be quite so nimble looking at a small screen and trying to do it.
I was about to go with the phone. Thank you, Janet, for the connection.
And thank you, Janet, for keeping us all on point all the time, especially me.
Let me tell you, this day today has, it's been rough for me. Mr. Conley is my hero today because he said, I didn't get to the link to the meeting. And I thought, well, that's weird. So I was working on a project and had not emailed the applicants yet. And all of a sudden I get online, I pull up Zoom and it's like, there's no link because it had expired. So I had to, but we made it all work. I emailed the applicants and everyone I could think of. And I've been monitoring emails. So we've got everybody covered.
So you want to give kudos to Mr. Connolly, and I want to tell him it's his fault that we're having a meeting tonight. So there you go.
No, because if
I kept my mouth shut, and I've talked to you several times today.
I know.
And I thought it was me who had lost the link.
No, this time I get to take full credit for it.
Well, I normally lose it, but
I'm always fishing for it. Okay, Gunnar, Patrick, are we ready? There we go. Okay, great. Thank you. I want to welcome everybody to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and I want to thank you all for your patience tonight as we had ran a little bit over on our time with the Board of Zoning Appeals. So I want to welcome you to the January 2022 meeting. And want to make a few introductions. First off, my name is Jeff Carson. I will be the chair of tonight's meeting. I also wanted to introduce Karen Jones, who's serving as vice chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Gunnar Hand, the director of Land Use and Urban Planning, is with us tonight, along with Janet Parker, who is the executive assistant to the Department of Land Use and Urban Planning, along with Byron Toy with the City Planning Department. We also have Patrick Waters with Unified Government Legal Counsel here with us tonight, along with the following Planning and Zoning Commissioners: Commissioner James Ernst, Commissioner James Connolly, Commissioner Susanna Pauley, Commissioner Evelyn Hill, Commissioner Mark Moeller, Commissioner Brandy Armstrong, and Commissioner Jake Miller. So with that, I want to welcome you all. I'm going to turn the meeting now over to Secretary Parker, who will read the opening statement and tell you how we're going to run tonight's meeting. Thank you.
We would like to welcome those participating to the meeting of the City Planning Commission. Due to COVID-19, the members are participating remotely by Zoom webinar. Mr. Jeff Carson is serving as chairman this evening. Please note the following instructions for the meeting. If you are joining by Zoom video, please make sure you have an appropriate background and plan to stay visible during the meeting. Planning Commission members, please use the raise your hand feature to speak. After Chairman Carson recognizes you, unmute your microphone and please state your name when you begin to speak. If you need to recuse or if you need to take a break, use the raise your hand feature. For those in attendance, please use the raise your hand feature when you want to speak on an issue. The chairman will recognize you when it is your time to speak. Unmute your microphone and state your name and address before giving your comments. If you have called in by telephone only, or if you are having trouble logging into the Zoom meeting, please email planninginfo@wicokck.org as Secretary Parker is monitoring that email. Proper meeting decorum is expected of all participating in the meeting, and anyone who fails to act properly will be removed from the meeting. The city reserves the right to discontinue a meeting if any improper behavior occurs, which prevents the uninterrupted conduct of business. The Planning Commission is a voluntary body of citizens which will review each zoning proposal. For all change of zone, special use permits, vacations, and preliminary plan reviews on tonight's agenda, the Planning Commission makes recommendations to the Unified Government Board of Commissioners, who will then make the final decisions on Thursday, January 27th, 2022. For final plats and final plan reviews heard tonight, the Planning Commission's decision is final, and there will not be another hearing. The format for this evening's meeting is as follows. The applicant will make the opening statement explaining the proposal. Please note that the applicant will be given 15 minutes to present their case. The 15 minutes includes the applicant, consultants, and other members of the applicant's team. Members of the Planning Commission will then address any questions they may have to the applicant. Any persons wishing to speak in favor will be called upon and allowed to do so at that time. Then those persons in opposition will be called upon and allowed to make their statements and ask questions. Please note that each member of the public who wishes to speak will be given 5 minutes to express their opinions. Time may not be shared between speakers. A speaker may request to extend their time, and the Planning Commission may, by 2/3 majority vote, extend any speaker's time in 5-minute increments. The applicant will then answer questions and make a closing statement. The public hearing portion of the meeting will be closed, and the public will only be allowed to address the commission if a question is directed to them. The Planning Commission will discuss the application and make their recommendation. If persons in opposition want to formally protest a change of zone or special use permit, a means is available by a legal protest petition, which can be obtained along with the necessary instructions by emailing the Planning and Urban Design Department at planninginfo@wicokck.org tomorrow morning. Any application receiving a unanimous vote of recommendation by the Planning Commission will appear on the consent agenda of the Unified Government Board of Commissioners. Unless there is a request to remove an item from the consent agenda by the applicant, a member of the Unified Government Commission, or other interested parties, the Planning Commission's recommendation will be adopted. The consent agenda is heard at the beginning of the meeting at 7 p.m. The Planning Commission will also have a consent agenda as part of their meeting this evening. The consent agenda is the first part of the agenda. Items on the consent agenda are final plats, final plans, or special use permit renewals that have received a staff recommendation to approve. Unless there's a request to remove an item from the consent agenda by the applicant, a member of the staff, a member of the Planning Commission, or other interested parties, the staff recommendation on all of the items on the consent agenda will be adopted by the Planning Commission at one time. I will read a list of agenda items on the consent agenda, and when I have completed the list, the chairman will ask if there are any requests to remove items. This is your time to use the raise your hand feature, be recognized, and request that an item be removed from the consent agenda if you do not agree with the staff's recommendation. The Planning Commission is required to disclose contacts about any item on the Planning Commission agenda. Before each item, I will ask if any contacts have been made, and members of the commission will be asked to disclose those contacts. Please note that your opinions will be forwarded to the governing body for their consideration in making a final decision. In addition, those who receive notices for this hearing will again receive them for the hearing on Thursday, January 27, 2022 at 7 p.m. I will now read the items on the consent agenda. Consideration of the December 13, 2021 City Planning Commission minutes. Special use permit application SP 2021 083, Aurelio and Maria Navarez, renewal of a special use permit for live entertainment in conjunction with the drinking establishment at 6550 Call Drive. Special use permit application SP 2021-085, Paul Ridgway, renewal of a home occupation special use permit for a personal trainer business at 419 Armstrong Avenue. Special use permit application SP 2021-086, Beverly and Frederick Avery with Avery's Village, renewal of a special use permit for a youth residential facility at 6261 Leavenworth Road. Plat 2021-030, Brody Shearer with NP Turner Industrial LLC. Final plat at 7200 Taromie Avenue, 743 North 74th Drive, and 725 North 74th Drive. Plan review application PR 2021-038, Brody Shearer with MP Turner Industrial LLC. Final plan review for Turner Logistics West, Building 9 at 7200 Taromie Avenue, 743 North 74th Drive, and 725 North 74th Drive. Plan review application PR 2021-037, J.M. Fahey Construction. Final plan review for asphalt plant improvements at 7020 Holiday Drive. The items I have just read are on the consent agenda. At this time, does any member of the commission wish to disclose any contact on any of these items?
No.
No.
Thank you. Please include the following items as part of the record for all of the items on the consent agenda: the city's currently adopted zoning and subdivision regulations, the official zoning map for the area in question, the city's currently adopted master plan for the area in question, the staff report and attachments dated January 10, 2022, the application and other documents, plans, pictures, and maps submitted by the applicant in furtherance of the case and contained in the official file, the publications in the Echo for the special use permits, and the notices to property owners. The commission will vote to approve in one vote these items unless someone requests that an item be removed from the consent agenda.
Thank you, Janet. Does anyone on the commission want anything removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience who would like to have anything removed from the consent agenda for special consideration? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Motion made by Commissioner Connolly to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Pauly. Any discussion on the consent agenda items? Seeing none, roll call.
Moeller,
Aye.
Pauly,
Aye.
Armstrong,
Aye.
Conley,
Aye.
Ernst,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to approve the items on the consent agenda, subject to the conditions in the staff report, passes 8 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you. To those audience members, if your case was on the consent agenda, you don't have to stay any further for this meeting. They've all been approved, so you're welcome to leave. You can certainly stay for the meeting if you'd like, but your cases have been approved if you're on the consent agenda. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to note, though, that the 3 special use permit renewals, they will go to the Board of Commissioners on January 27th at 7 p.m.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, that completes the consent agenda, and we will now move on to the non-consent agenda. We have 2 items that we're going to hear together. Master Plan Amendment MPL 2022-025, Michael Macris with BHC Roads. Master Plan Amendment from Community Commercial and Low Density Residential to Medium Density Residential Citywide Master Plan at 2416 and 2416A South 51st Street, 5115 Gibbs Road, and 5125 Gibbs Road, and change of zone application COZ 2021-047. Change of zone from R1 Single Family, C1 Limited Business, and CP1 Planned Limited Business Districts to RP5 Planned Apartment District for Tower View Townhomes at the same address. Mr. Chairman, please include the following items as part of the record for this case. The city's currently adopted zoning and subdivision regulations, the official zoning map for the area in question, the city's currently adopted master plan for the area in question, the staff report and attachments dated January 10, 2022, the application and other documents, plans, pictures, and maps submitted by the applicant in furtherance of the case and contained in the official file, the notice in the Wyandotte Echo, and the notices to property owners. At this time, does any member of the commission have any contact to disclose with regard to this application?
No.
No.
You?
Thank you, Mr. Macris, and please correct me if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. You're queued up, ready to speak, so go ahead and give us your name and address and tell us about your project.
Yes, good evening. This is Michael Macris with BHC.
Sorry, we lost you.
I apologize for that mute. It changed me to presenter and it took a moment to adjust. So my name is Michael Macris with BHC. We are working with Mr. Conrad Miller, project attorney and development partner. Janet, I'd like to confirm that he's been made, given the ability to speak, he is a co-presenter tonight.
Yes, he is.
Okay,
I've got him
excellent.
set up.
And then I will go ahead and share my screen. And Conrad, did you want to start off the presentation?
Yes.
Yep, we can
I
hear
would
you.
if I can, if you can hear me.
Yes.
Luckily, you can't see me, but you can hear me.
Okay.
I just wanted to quickly go over just a little history of the project. As I think several of the members were all in the commission last year when we presented a project for a 40-unit apartment project on that site. That was ultimately turned down. This property was the old Tower Lanes Bowling Center that burned down in 2006. It has sat vacant and unproductive for the last 15 years. It's still in my family, and we have made efforts to market the property, to do things with it. Never really anything that was any good until the idea of a residential use came up. We did last year, present a 40-unit apartment, ultimately denied. We did go back, however, and just talk to the neighbors. We talked to, and there was a large consensus that, we'd like to see single family homes there. And we did look at that, but the infrastructure that's required for that is just, the density is just not enough to put enough single family houses on there to make them marketable. They're just it's out of the price realm. So what we did is we took the criticisms. The 2 stories. There were 2 stories. People didn't want those 2 stories backed up against them. it was out of character for the neighborhood. We took that into account. So we put the one single family rental, or I'm sorry, single family units along the edge with the other properties. We put, which is 16 units. We took 16 units and put them, or 2-story units along the commercial properties to the northeast of the property. So that gives us enough density to be able to sell these. These are going to be for sale. These are not, rental units that the developer is going to hold. Each one is going to be separately sold and titled. That was one of the things that was a fear. The rental, we have put in rental restrictions in our deed restrictions, and some of the more aggressive restrictions that I've ever drafted or that I've ever seen. We've also looked at the traffic concerns. There was some concerns from the neighbors about the traffic coming onto Gibbs Road. And we have discussed and agreed to, take back some of the landscaping that might be there to help that view, so that there's not a blind spot there. And we think that the look that we have on these homes, you can see them there. I think that these are going to really give a good transition to that neighborhood. They're going to look like the homes in the area. So, we're not going to be a big, 2-story, 40 units apartment or a large apartment complex there. It was a good transition from the commercial to the residential. And we think it's going to be a really, really good quality product. And there, I've talked to our, the Chandra Ward. I don't know if Chandra's on tonight or not, but we've talked to her and she thinks that these will probably be $175,000 to $200,000 units. So we're not throwing up slipshod junk. They will be nice units and a real credit to the neighborhood. We are fine. We've talked with the city, Mike, the Mike and Mike show we had, and have had several conversations concerning the recommendations, and we are okay with almost all of those recommendations. There are a couple, and I'm going to let Mike Marcus talk about that at this time. Mike?
Yeah, thank you, Conrad. So just to speak to some of the design of the project, as Conrad mentioned, we are putting 2-story townhome fourplex type units on the northeast portion of the site to help be that buffer between the C1 commercial, and then we'll transition down the scale of the buildings to that 1-story townhome as we become adjacent to the residential R1 zoning. So just a quick overview of the townhome floor plan. We received some initial feedback from staff about the dominance of the garages. So we did seek to pull the front porches out, create a foyer entrance with the project, and kind of better give emphasis to the front door over just the garages. Also broke up that physical straight line of the 2 garage doors to give some more breaks in the front facade. Showing the elevations of the 2-story structures, fairly similar in floor plans, removing the garage, similar square footage size as the townhomes, just that different housing option within the project. Quick overview of the site. Conrad mentioned, we had access onto Gibbs Road and 51st Street. This was similar with the last iteration of this project. Water is draining towards the southwest. We are putting in a stormwater detention facility as required by the Unified Government Stormwater Management Ordinances. There isn't any detention facilities on site right now, so water is running undetained off onto neighbors' properties. So we'll be correcting some of that with the project, and then including a landscape screen and the architectural landscape screening required by I believe it was staff condition number 1. We'll meet that with the final plan. To Conrad's comment about staff conditions, there was 15 items listed. We are in a full agreement with all but 2 we wanted to have some discussion on tonight. The first was staff condition number 8, and it read, in order to meet site design best practices, the townhome building closest to Gibbs Road must face that right of way. In the final plan review process, the applicant must provide a revised site plan demonstrating this reorientation. We begun to look at this as we got the comments last week and looked at turning that northernmost fourplex out towards the street, and what that kind of did to create a better arrangement of the buildings themselves. We felt it was important so we didn't have any bedrooms kind of looking out towards the side of another building, to rotate then this building towards the south. This does a couple things when we're looking at the site at a more of a micro site level. It stresses this southern parking we have in our site to really force these 3 structures that have the proximity of this southern row of parking, and then kind of leave some of this parking here loosely used. And then also, as we kind of zoom out a little bit and we look at some of the context of the area, we felt that there isn't a well-established and defined building line along Gibbs Road that we would be matching. So it is inconsistent with some of the context of the site. And also, to Conrad's point about deed restricting this into a 55 and up housing, we are looking to create a project that has that community feel and community sense, and really wanted to promote these residents walking out towards each other in this more central corridor. So people are leaving their homes, they're seeing their neighbors coming home from the grocery store and whatnot, and providing that kind of inclusive social corridor. So with that, we would like to request the removal of condition number 8 to allow us to keep this structure internal facing. And then the second condition was staff condition number 10, and that was front entrance of the 1-story townhomes continue to be visually dominated by the attached garages. A redesign of this building should be submitted as the part of the final plan review process. One of the things we've really focused on, as Conrad mentioned, over the past year, was working with the neighbors, and we heard a lot of dislike of the 2-story. So we had abutting the residential previously, and to scale the massing of the development more consistent with the neighboring 1-story residential, we felt it was important to bring the townhomes down to a 1-story type project. And that resulted in us bringing out the garages in the front. One of the comments we discussed with staff was, on more of an urban project, you could do something like an alley loaded configuration. We don't have the land area for that here. And then the other was to do some side loaded garages that would really bring down the density and the ability to develop this project. So we think that opening it up to front facing garages is the most effective plan for this site, but would like to continue to work with staff on some facade and material improvements regarding that front elevation to provide better breaking up of that front facade, and are happy to do that as we continue on through the planning process. So with that, that concludes my presentation. Conrad, any final comments?
I don't have anything else that I think we've covered everything pretty well. I just want to say that I think we have responded to the neighbors. We've had and the staff as to what they would like to see there. This is kind of, this is going down from a commercial zoning to a residential zoning. So while it's not single family residential, it is residential and it's not going to be commercial. And, like I say, one of the tracks, 5115 Gibbs, is a commercial track. So we are bringing it down to a residential and doing the 55 and over restriction, again, in response to the neighbors worrying about, the 16-year-old kids driving their car, drag racing up and down Gibbs Road and flying off of 51st Street, that kind of thing. So I think we've responded pretty well. I think we have a good plan. I think it's a workable plan. And I think it's going to be a benefit. That's all I have. Anyone have any questions? Be happy to answer anything.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicants? I just have one quick one. You made a comment. Are these going to all be age restricted?
This will be restricted. I think it's at least 80% have to be to follow the HUD guidelines.
So 80% will be 55 and older.
Yes, and that will be the restriction.
And that's for the attached homes as well as the townhomes.
That's all of them. Yes.
All right. All right. Thank you. And are the townhomes, are they going to be sold as well, owner occupant, or are they going to be rental?
Those are, our intention is to sell those as owner occupants.
Okay. So everything will have the option to be sold.
Yeah. We were planning on selling them.
All right.
We're not
thank
going,
you.
this is not something that we're going to be, this isn't our rental project. This will be sold. Each unit is going to be separately sold. Each unit is going to have the deed restrictions on them.
And there will be an HOA that will cover outside
HOA,
maintenance. Okay.
Yes. And we had some questions about the HOA, what that would be. And, we did just some, we haven't gotten that far yet as to exactly what it might be, but it might be $100 a month.
That's fine. That's not germane to our discussions tonight, but I appreciate the fact that you all have listened to the neighbors and come back with a project that hopefully meets with their approval as well. Any other questions for the applicant? Seeing none, we'll go to the audience. Anyone in the audience want to speak in favor of or in opposition to this request? Please raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, we'll go to Director Hand. We'll get his comment.
Hey, Mr. Chair, let me just bring up the screen again. So again, you have before you two requests, one for a master plan amendment, the other for a change of zone. Again, we're going from community, commercial, and low density residential to medium density residential, as well as R1C1, CP1 to RP4, the synopsis, and it was noticed as RP5. We've corrected that with the applicant. It is in RP4 zone area. Again, this is in the Turner area, right off Gibbs Road. The applicant did mention, it's important to note that over a year ago, they were denied on this case. We have gone through the required 1-year time span before resubmittal. It's also a substantially different project, so they probably could have come in a little bit earlier before then. Again, this is the old bowling alley site. There are a bunch of old notice of violations on these multiple properties. None of them pertain to this case before you tonight. We received no letters of support, no letters in opposition. Staff does recommend approval, but we do have multiple conditions of approval, and I'll address number 8 and 10 that Mr. Macris noted earlier in his testimony here in just a quick second as I scan through these. Some of those conditions of approval, just to highlight a few, are the architectural screen fence between the multifamily uses and the single family neighborhood to the west and the south. There is an amenity that is required on this common parcel that we still have to figure out with the applicant and place somewhere on the site plan. we've mentioned on multiple occasions the multifamily design guidelines. Number 8 and number 10 are essentially pulling out our interpretation of the multifamily design guidelines and being very specific about 2 components thereof. I'd be willing to strike both 8 and 10, but that is to say that we are still expecting to have a conversation with the applicant on some redesign of both the buildings and the site itself, potentially, depending on what happens with that amenity, depending on what happens with potentially the reorientation, whether it happens or not. Again, both 8 and 10 are inherent and included in the multifamily design guidelines, which is a separate condition of approval. If we want to allow greater flexibility between this change of zone, which acts as the preliminary development plan, and the final development plan, I think staff can live with striking 8 or 10, so long as everybody knows that we're going to be asking basically for 8 and 10 and working with the applicant to address those issues as it relates to the duplex/fourplexes, townhomes, and their dominance, the predominance of the garages in those buildings, as well as the orientation on Gibbs Road. Specifically, the multifamily guidelines does specifically note addressing the primary street, which is Gibbs Road in this instance. Additional conditions of approval that I just want to note for the record are the final development plan being required as a part of this process. So we believe that in terms of the density, 32 units, the buffering between the single family to the commercial, the core ask here, the changes zone in the master plan amendment, we do recommend approval. We think we can address all the design issues at final development plan accordingly. Staff recommends approval.
All right, thank you. Questions for Director Hand? Gunnar, on the orientation of the one townhome building to Gibbs Road, you think that's workable to leave it the way that it is, that it faces in the interior? To me, I think it's more pleasing to a potential owner of those than facing the busier street. And I think it's more palatable to the neighborhood itself to drive down and see that than the side of the building as you enter the development.
Understood. Again, I think if to allow for greater flexibility, both with the applicant and staff, so that we can work through these final design details, I'd recommend that we strike 8 and 10. We will still need to adhere to the multifamily design guidelines, and we can work with them more intensely.
Work together. All right. Thank you.
They did adjust their design. We just feel like it didn't go far enough for the townhomes. But again, we're at this stage, preliminary development plan. We think everything's good to go.
Okay. Thank you. Any further questions for the director? Commissioner Hill? I need you to unmute. There we go.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Mr. Gunn, I'm just trying to get a little more clarity. What was the challenge with the front facing inward? I mean, I know it's against the ordinance, but what else? What is the greatest challenge there?
The multifamily design guidelines speak a lot to the pedestrian connectivity within a site. They speak a lot to the prominence of the primary entrances to units, and they speak to addressing the primary arterial, it's not really an arterial, the primary roadway to the site, which was Gibbs Road. So again, the multifamily design guidelines are guidelines that are the planning commissions. If we seek any deviation from them, you can grant them without a variance. If we keep them 8 and 10 as an example, as conditions of approval, the applicant has to do that no matter what. And without asking, essentially we're pulling 2 specific points out of the multifamily design guidelines and saying these are conditions of approval. If we get rid of those, we still have the multifamily design guidelines. And if the applicant in the future wants to seek a deviation from them, i.e. if we don't come to the common ground on the final design, they can request those deviations from you at the final development plan stage. And we think that that's probably the most flexible way to move forward as we fine tune the design of the project.
The reason I ask, I just know of other developments where the front was on the interior, on the inside of the whole total complex. So what you're saying is you just really want to stick with the regular ordinance that the city has in place and just for continuity across the city, correct?
With this specific case, it's a little, let's just say, well, every situation is unique. We didn't want the townhomes on this side, on the west side of the road to face, because then we would have been adding more driveways, right? So we limited it to this one to face the road like all the other single family homes face Gibbs Road, except for that one on the corner right across the street. But if you go up and down Gibbs Road, everybody faces Gibbs Road. That is the street frontage. Now there's some setback issues, there's some distances, there's some incongruity from the setbacks for the single family homes to the west and the commercial to the east. But again, we think as a transition, that street wall can change. Plus there's a curve in the road, so the street wall kind of has an oblique angle anyway. I'm getting a little esoteric here, but again, if we pull 8 and 10 out, I think the applicant is hearing us say what we had tried to say earlier again, and we are willing to work with them on the final development plan.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll stand for motion. Commissioner Ernst?
Chairman, can we take the master plan amendment
Yes,
first?
I'm sorry. This would be on the master plan. We'll need 2 motions on the master plan first and then the change of zone. Thank you, Janet. Commissioner Ernst.
On the master plan, I move the Kansas City, Kansas City Planning Commission recommend approval of petition MPL 2021-025, subject to all staff stipulations and comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Ernst made a motion to approve the master plan amendment. Is there any is there a second?
What? Point of order, Mr. Chair. Did we want
Yes.
to remove 8 and 10?
That would be on the master plan, correct? Yes.
I believe both conditions are on both.
Commissioner Ernst.
And the changes on.
Subject to all staff stipulations and comments.
Okay, so that would be removing conditions 8 and 10?
Yes.
Yes, 8 and 10. All right, is there a second, Commissioner Jones? Thank you. Moved and seconded for approval, subject to the staff comments and additional recommendations. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call. Commissioner
Moller?
Ernst.
Aye.
Polly,
Aye.
Armstrong,
Aye.
Conley, Mr. Conley,
He's saying aye, but we can't hear it.
okay.
Let me,
Ernst,
Aye.
Aye.
Hill,
Did you?
Aye.
we got you, Mr. Connolly.
Jones,
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to recommend approval of Master Plan Amendment 25, subject to the revised conditions of staff, passes 8 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you. Now I need a motion on the change of zone. Commissioner Ernst.
I move the Kansas City Planning Commission recommend approval of petition COZ 2021-047, change of zoning, subject to all staff stipulations and comments.
Thank you. Is that a second, Commissioner Jones? Or Commissioner Hill, excuse me. I saw both hands up, then I saw one go down. Commissioner Hill.
Yes, I second. Thank you.
All right, we'll give that one to you. Okay, seconded by Commissioner Hill. Commissioner Ernst, did you have a comment?
My comment would be, this is a perfect example of what comes from waiting and looking for the best opportunity to improve the community. They've come back and done a really, really commendable job of what everybody wanted.
Absolutely. Thank you for making that comment. Commissioner Jones.
I just want to say for the record, I totally concur with Commissioner Ernst. This is a great example of working together for the good of a project.
Absolutely. We saw a complete turnaround. Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Moeller,
Aye.
Polly,
Aye.
Armstrong,
Aye.
Conley,
Aye.
Ernst,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to recommend approval of change of zone 47 to the RP4 district, subject to the revised conditions of staff, passes 8 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you. This will be heard once again on January 27th before the Board of County Commissioners at 7 p.m. Thank you both, gentlemen.
Our next application is change of zone COZ 2021-053, John Coffin. Change of zone from R1 Single Family District to AG Agriculture District for agricultural purposes at 3817 Lust Drive. Please include the following items as part of the record for this case. The city's currently adopted zoning and subdivision regulations, the official zoning map for the area in question, the city's currently adopted master plan for the area in question, the staff report and attachments dated January 10, 2022, the application and other documents, plans, pictures, and maps submitted by the applicant in furtherance of the case and contained in the official file, the notice in the Wyandotte Echo, the notices to property owner, and the testimony at the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting earlier this evening. Does any member of the commission have any contact to disclose with regard to this application?
No.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Cawthon, you're up again. If you would please go ahead and start off again by giving us your name and address and tell us what you want to do with your project.
My name is John Cawthon at 3817 Lust Drive, Kansas City, Kansas 66106. It's a property of about 8 acres, and I've been just trying to clean it up. There's going to be a lot more cleanup, and it's because of the way it is in a valley that there's definitely going to be a need to put some additional, or at least possibly additional structures, a little outbuilding up on the top of the hill to continue maintenance of the property. And have to go through variance every single time would seem there'd be a lot of effort for that.
Okay, anything else you want to add from your testimony from earlier?
No.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant? Seeing none, we'll go to the public, and I've got Rich. Once again, give us your name and address, please.
Richard Wilcox, 3808 Lust Drive, as well as 3804 Lust Drive, Kansas City, Kansas 66106. Okay, I appreciate that he's gonna clean up the property and do whatever, but like I said earlier, my biggest thing was livestock.
Okay, and he is not requested to put livestock there at this time. What can we get you an answer to? Or is it just an opposition, the fact that he could at some point add livestock?
Exactly, that's my opposition.
Okay, all right, duly noted. Anything else you'd like to add, sir?
No, that was just, like I said, I like my neighbors. I appreciate that he's gonna finally, somebody's gonna clean up the property because they had horses down there years ago. One winter, I'm sitting there washing dishes and I had this horse pop his head up and I'm sitting, okay, whatever. But yeah, my basic opposition is just the livestock.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else in the audience want to speak in favor of or in opposition to this case? Seeing none, we'll go to Director Hand, get his comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This case is being heard in conjunction with the Board of Zoning Appeals case 2021-047 lot depth to width ratio, which was approved earlier this evening before he was a change of zone from R1 to AG. Again, this is in the Turner area, just off Lust Drive. You can see the odd shaped parcel. Again, it used to be a square, and over time it got kind of subdivided accordingly. There are no notice of violations on the property. We have received calls in support of this. There's been no letters in opposition before the testimony this evening. We have the same conditions of approval of that BOZA, which is a recommendation for approval. A driveway apron to UG standards. There is a conservation plan that does note some conditions of approval in and of itself. That conservation plan does need to be updated as a condition of approval if livestock are brought onto this property in the future. There is in that conservation plan the note of a stream buffer being created. There's basically a drainage ditch that you can kind of see here come down. It's effectively a stream. It's not an Army Corps of Engineers body of water. But the conservation district does ask for a 25-foot buffer on either side of the stream. If specifically if livestock were ever brought onto the property, conservation district not only needs an updated conservation plan, but specifically notes that that stream needs to be fenced off from that livestock accordingly. Again, the buffer stands for all future development on the site. Again, remove the camper, and I believe I misspoke at the BOZA case, remove the camper and the horse stable were a part of the conditions of approval. That one shade structure, which was adjacent to the horse stable, can stay. It did end up getting a building permit retroactively by the applicant. And as I sort through the scriptures, which you've seen before, again, staff recommends approval. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Gunnar, could you clarify real quick without me going back to the staff report? How large is this parcel again?
I believe it's just over 8 acres.
Okay. Any questions for Director Hand? Seeing none, I'll stand for a motion.
Just under 8 acres, 7.95.
Commissioner Mueller?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't raise my hand.
I'm sorry, excuse me. I'll stand for a motion. Commissioner Jones?
Motion to approve subject to staff stipulations and comments.
Motion to approve made by Commissioner Jones. Is that a second, Commissioner Ernst?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion to approve? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Bowler,
Aye.
Pauly,
Aye.
Armstrong,
Aye.
Conley,
Aye.
Ernst,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to recommend approval of change of zone 53, subject to the conditions of staff, passes 8 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you, Mr. Cawthon. This will be heard once again before the Board of County Commissioners on January 27th at 7 p.m.
Mr. Chairman, that completes the change of zones, and we'll now move on to the special use permits. The first one is SP 2021-077, Natalie Mcnutt. Special use permit for short-term rental at 3801 Lloyd. Please include the following items as part of the record for this case: the city's currently adopted zoning and subdivision regulations, the official zoning map for the area in question, the city's currently adopted master plan for the area in question, the staff report and attachments dated January 10, 2022, the application, other documents, plans, pictures, and maps submitted by the applicant in furtherance of the case and contained in the official file, the notice in the Wyandotte Echo, and the notices to property owners. At this time, does any member of the commission have any contact to disclose with regard to this application?
No.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Mcnutt, I've got you queued up to speak. Go ahead and give us your name and address, please, and tell us what you want to do here.
Hi, I'm Natalie Mcnutt, and my address is 14825 Fairway Circle, Leawood, Kansas, 66224. So my son, it was his first home, and he relocated to North Carolina for a job. He kind of wanted to keep the home initially because he wasn't sure he was going to stay. And when he ended up staying, my husband and I decided to keep the home because it was our son's first home, and because we still would like our son to come back to Kansas City. So we decided to do a short-term rental. We really just want to rent it out to KU, either doctors here that are on a short-term rotation or to patients that are coming in for dialysis. We are not looking for the weekenders, anyone that's just coming in for a weekend. We know the neighbors. We love the area. So we are just looking for good people that need a nice house to stay in while they're visiting KU Med. We do have a handyman that will finish up the work on the items that Callie needs finished this week. So that should all be completed. My husband's working on a vacation with BPU, I think for next month's agenda.
Right.
And after that, I think hopefully everything will be finished.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Okay, go to the public. Anyone in the audience want to speak in favor of or in opposition to this request? Raise your hand. Seeing none, we'll go to Director Hand and get his comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. This is a special use permit for a short-term rental. This is in the Rosedale neighborhood. There are no notices of violations on the property. We received no letters of support nor opposition. Staff does recommend approval for 1 year as there is no on-site manager for the short-term rental as per our Planning Commission standards and protocols. We do have a couple of conditions of approval. The applicant did mention a couple of things on the home inspection that we'd asked them to fix that are going to happen here. It sounds like pretty soon, so she could get us those before the, if approved, recommend approval tonight before the Board of Commissioners later this month. Additionally, we're looking at a max of 6 guests, 2 cars off street. We apply all the standard conditions. I just want to note real quick, Ms. Mcnutt did note that a vacation's coming in that does not need to be heard in conjunction with this case, but we can follow up a little bit later. Essentially, there's some leftover platted right of way here that BPU doesn't need, the UG doesn't want, and this road is never going to be built through Fisher Park and to Mini Street. So I think we are working on that one with them right there. I'm going to show you a picture really quick as it relates to that vacation, and then we can kind of keep moving forward as I flip through these photos. You can sort of see it here. Essentially, the road ends right about here, and they kind of have an angled driveway. So if they get that vacation, they'll be able to sort of square this off a little bit in the future, and have a little bit of breathing room in their backyard and side yard accordingly. With that, again, staff recommends approval. Happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Director Hand? Seeing none, we'll stand for a motion.
Motion to approve subject to staff stipulations.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Pauly. Is that a second, Commissioner Connolly?
Yes.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion for approval? Commissioner Hill, was that up for a second earlier? All right,
Yes.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Janet.
Bowler,
Aye.
Polly,
Aye.
Armstrong,
Aye.
Conley,
Aye.
Ernst,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to recommend approval of special use permit 77, subject to the conditions of staff, passes 8 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you, Ms. Mcnutt. This will be heard once again on January 27th, 7 p.m. before the Board of County Commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next application is special use permit SP 2021-080. Brian Stoops with Jamestown Properties LLC. Special use permit for short-term rental Airbnb at 3151 West 45th Avenue. Please include the following items as part of the record for this case: the city's currently adopted zoning and subdivision regulations, the official zoning map for the area in question, the city's currently adopted master plan for the area in question, The staff report and attachments dated January 10, 2022. The application and other documents, plans, pictures, and maps submitted by the applicant in furtherance of the case and contained in the official file, the notice in the Wyandotte Echo, and the notices to property owners. Does any member of the commission have any contact to disclose with regard to this application?
No.
You?
Thank you. Mr. Stoops, we've got you ready to speak. Go ahead and give us your name and address.
Yeah, can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
All right, my name is Ryan Stoops. My residence is at 140 West Lanesfield in Gardner, Kansas. As you can see here, I have a house at 3151 West 45th Avenue in Kansas City, Kansas, the Rosedale area, or the Rosedale district. This is the second to last house on a dead end road. I recently acquired this property in October and did some just slight updates, painting, doing, updating some cosmetic work. I bought it with the intention of turning this into a short-term rental. And I don't know what else you guys want there, but what questions do you guys have for me?
Okay, we'll find out. Any questions for the applicant? And you don't live near this, you live in Gardner, so you're within what, 30 minutes of the property?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? Seeing none, anyone in the audience want to speak in favor of or in opposition to this request? Seeing none, we'll go to Director Hand.
Hey, Mr. Chair, again, Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. This is a short-term rental special use permit in the Rosedale area. There are no notice of violations on the property. No letters of support nor opposition were received. Short-term rental is for a maximum of 6 guests and 2 cars off street. We apply all the standard conditions. You can see the applicant did update the driveway, which was something we were looking for. Typically look for some of these cases, and that has been done to UG standards. Again, staff recommends approval for 1 year, as this is its first approval, and there is no on-site manager in accordance with the Planning Commission's guidelines. Happy to take any questions.
All right. Any questions for Director Hand? Seeing none, I'll stand for a motion. Commissioner Jones?
Motion to approve, subject to staff stipulations and comments.
Okay, motion to approve made by Commissioner Jones. Is that a second, Commissioner Connolly?
Correct.
Thank
Correct.
you. Any discussion on the motion for approval? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Moeller,
Aye.
Foley,
Aye.
Armstrong,
Aye.
Conley,
Aye.
Ernst,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Chairman, that motion to recommend approval of special use permit 80, subject to the conditions in the staff report, passes. 8 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you, Mr. Stoops. This will be heard once again, January 27th, 7 p.m. before the Board of County Commissioners.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, that now takes us to our one plat. Plat 2021-032, Jose Maderos. Final plat for 56 single-family lots at 5209 North 101st Terrace, 10241 Hutton Road and 10401 Hutton Road. Please include the following items as part of the record for this case: the city's currently adopted zoning and subdivision regulations, the official zoning map for the area in question, the city's currently adopted master plan for the area in question, the staff report and attachments dated January 10, 2022, the application and other documents, plans, pictures, and maps submitted by the applicant in furtherance of the case and contained in the official file and the notices to property owners. At this time, does any member of the board have any contact to disclose with regard to this application?
No.
No.
Thank you.
Okay, Andrea, I've got you queued up to speak. If you'd go ahead and give us your name and address, please. I'm assuming you're representing Mr. Maderos.
Yes, that's correct. Andrea Wishup, 2300 Hutton Road, Kansas City, Kansas, 66109.
Thank you.
So this is a, as Janet said, this is a 56 lot subdivision in directly south of Connor Creek, and hence the name Connor Creek South. We actually heard the preliminary plat. You guys heard the preliminary plat 2 months ago and approved it. And now we are moving forward with the final plat and the final development plans as well.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant? Seeing none, we'll go to the public. Anyone in the audience want to speak in favor of or in opposition to this request? Please raise your hand. Seeing none, we'll go to Director Hand for his comment.
Hey, Mr. Chair, this is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. Again, this is a final plat for 56 single-family home parcels and 4 common tracts. This is in the Prairie, Delaware Piper Master Plan area. Property has no notices of violation. We've received no letters of support nor opposition for the case. Just a couple things we wanted to mention. We do recommend approval with multiple conditions, which you can see in the staff report, and I'll go over a couple of them just now. Namely, I wanted to highlight everything that's in the Prairie, Delaware Piper Master Plan as it relates to subdivision development, specifically the design of the single-family homes. It's within that master plan area. It does call for a diversity of home typologies be developed in a subdivision of this type. Additionally, it does call for if there is a front-loading garage on the front facade, that it is not a dominant feature. In fact, it needs to be less than 1/3 of the front facade in total. Again, those are all carried out and administered by the Building Inspections Department when building permits are pulled for these parcels, assuming there are no variances or no other plan reviews required by planning staff. Again, we will be tagging these lots if and when created to do those additional reviews and make sure that our building inspection staff is making sure that it is developed to that master plan standard. I'd also like to just quickly point out that there are 2 conditions of approval as it relates to the amenities provided. The applicant has worked with staff extensively on this project. We very much appreciate their support and ability to turn things around quickly. We're adding sidewalks. We're connecting into existing sidewalks in Connor Creek, as well as the existing roadways. And specifically, the other amenity is the pool, both of which have to be built before the first building permit can be pulled for Connor Creek South. With that, staff recommends approval. Happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Director Hand? Seeing none, we'll stand for a motion. Commissioner Jones.
Motion to approve, subject to staff stipulations and comments, including adherence to the Prairie Piper Delaware Master Plan.
All right, thank you. Motion to approve made by Commissioner Jones. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Pauly. Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion for approval? Seeing none, roll call.
Mulder,
Aye.
Pauly,
Aye.
Armstrong,
Aye.
Conley,
Aye.
Ernst,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to approve this final plat passes 8 in favor and none opposed, subject to the conditions in the staff report.
Thank you, Ms. Bishop. This will be heard once again, January 27th at 7 p.m. before the Board of County Commissioners. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
This is a final plat, so it will not
Oh.
go to the commissioners.
I'm sorry. It will not. It's been approved.
Mr. Chairman, I have 2 more items on the agenda. The next one is MPL 2022-005, Gunnar H. Hand with Department of Planning and Urban Design. Consideration of the update to the 47th Street Overlay District in order to remove the requirement for a separate interjurisdictional review panel comprised of the unified government, City of Westwood, and City of Overland Park, and other updates that allow each municipality to independently review their portion of this shared overlay district.
Director Hand.
Hey, Mr. Chair, this is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. Staff would actually ask that this be continued to the February meeting. Legal counsel has requested additional time to make sure that the ordinance changes don't conflict with our interlocal agreement with those 3 cities. Just as a quick bit of background, All three cities worked on the amendments to these ordinances, and all three cities are adopting the exact same ordinance moving forward. Essentially, we all have faith in our respective planning commissions to uphold this ordinance moving forward.
All right, thank you. So we need to go to the audience. Was there anyone here tonight that wanted to speak in favor or in opposition to this? At this time, please raise your hand. Okay, no one's here to speak to it. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion. Is anybody opposed to ending this meeting early and disposing of this issue till next month? Then make that motion. Commissioner Jones.
I'd be glad to make the motion to approve Gunnar Hand's request to hold this over to our February meeting.
Okay, thank you. Motion's been made by Commissioner Jones. Is that a second, Commissioner Miller?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mueller,
Aye.
Pauly,
Aye.
Armstrong,
Aye.
Conley,
Aye.
Ernst,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to hold over this application until the February 14th meeting passes 8 in favor and none opposed.
Great. We will hear from Gunnar next month.
Mr. Chairman, we have one last item on the agenda, and that is the election of the chairman and vice chairman for 2022.
Thank you. Any nominations for the chair for the Planning and Zoning Commission for 2022? Commissioner Miller?
I nominate Chairman Jeff Carson and Karen Jones for vice chair.
Okay. Any other nominations? Karen, you up for another round?
I'm in there with you all.
Okay. Who knows? I might be getting a little scratchy throat or something. Might be called into service.
Oh, no.
Okay. Seeing no other nominations, I will ask for a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposition? All right. Thank you all. We appreciate your votes of confidence. And it's always easier when you end on a night that we're ending early. I wouldn't have stood a chance of snowball and you know where last month at 12:30 or whatever it was of ever getting past you guys. Anything else we need to do, Janet or Gunnar?
I just want to remind the commission that next month's meeting is on Monday, February 14th, which is Valentine's Day. So I guess you guys are going to need to make weekend plans, huh?
You want Commissioner Miller to miss Valentine's Day with his new bride, his first Valentine's Day with his new bride? I don't know.
Maybe
That's kind of messed up, Janet. That you
Hey.
And I'm going to tell her that you plan this meeting on Valentine's Day.
Well, you know what I think would be sweet? If she sat right next to you during the meeting, side by side.
Do you want me to get divorced? Is that
I
what
was
you're
going to
trying
say that
push
is a
through?
sure way. That is not a good recommendation. Janet, I side with you 99.9% of the time, but not this one.
I'll second Janet's emotion on that one.
Okay.
Now would be the time to tell you all that we will have a special 5 o'clock meeting to go over the CMIP with Public Works on the 14th as well.
Okay.
Gunnar just made it worse.
Yep.
So, and do we know, are we going to have a pretty full agenda?
Not 100% sure yet. Most likely it'll be full. We received 45 applications for February. Again, this one was light because we had a bunch of holdovers. So some of those holdovers will show up in February as well.
Okay. All right. Well,
The score is 3-3, Alabama and Georgia.
oh yeah, I need to get to that game. What? So Alabama's up?
No, it's tied.
Oh,
Tied.
I'm sorry. You said it's tied. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good. Let's get out of here.
All right.
Good night,
Bye,
everyone.
everybody. Happy
Good
New Year.
night.
Thank you all.
Thank you.